think Congressman Luke Messer, Republican from the 6th Congressional District of Indiana, is here to talk about time machines. But Congressman, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, Steve, yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, my pleasure. And as a member of the Budget Committee and in the House, in the majority, when you take a look at Barack Obama's budget presented yesterday and the proposals, what's your reaction?
Well, frankly, by and large, it's disappointment. You know, the president would like to present his budget as a middle ground, but if anything, it was more of a middle ground between the House Democratic proposed budget and the Senate Democratic proposed budget. It spends a lot of money. It increases debt. It increases spending, and it raises taxes by $1 trillion. You know, I'm relatively new here, and so you try to find the positives in what you have. I think the one positive I would find in the budget is the fact that the president at least talks about Social Security and Medicare reform in his budget, and at least continues the dialogue, because it's very difficult to get this nation's fiscal challenges in order without some significant reforms to Social Security and Medicare.
No, absolutely. And, of course, he's taken a lot of heat from the other side of the aisle, his side of the aisle, for even going there on those measures. But, you know, the president, there's a NBC News Wall Street Journal poll out today that shows since his reelection, he's lost 6 points in his approval and he's gained 5 points in his disapproval, or vice versa, 11-point swing. He's now got more people disapproving, I think 48, than approved 47. And that's from NBC in the Wall Street Journal. I just think that people are catching on to the nonstop campaign, whether it's on guns, whether it's on immigration, whether it's on the budget. This proposal that he put forth is the same proposal that Boehner said no to basically a year ago.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think, as you said, people are catching on to the fact, you know, that eventually, when you're the leader, the excuses have to stop. You know, the president seemed to get almost a 4-year pass with this sort of dog ate my homework, you know, blame everything on his predecessor, and eventually folks, I think, now expect him to lead. You know, it was interesting in Budget Committee today, a member on the other side of the aisle mentioned that, you know, it's very difficult to present a compromise when you haven't had any of the work, you haven't done any of the work with either side to demonstrate a compromise. So, you know, it's great to have a meal here and there with folks on the other side of the aisle, but if the president wants to get serious about Social Security and Medicare reform, then he needs to work with people who want to get that done. And you know, I'm very disappointed that the president has predicated any talk about Social Security and Medicare reform on his tax increases, essentially locked those together, said that he won't consider one unless we raise taxes further. And in my mind, if this is the right thing to do, which really actuaries on both sides of the aisle all acknowledge it is, something has to be done, then let's go to work on it and not force it to be dependent on something that clearly we don't agree on.
I couldn't agree more. We're talking right now with Congressman Luke Messer from Indiana on the Steve Malzberg Show. I believe Congressman Ryan has said possibly today that he doesn't want this to all go to conference, because the two sides are so far apart, the Senate bill and the Ryan budget, which was passed in the House, that it just doesn't make sense to go to conference.
Yeah, and I understand why Paul would feel that way. Obviously, you know, Paul's one of the people that would be hard at work in that conference as a budget leader. I think there's been a lot of talk here in this chamber about the fact that we got to turn to regular order, and I know that's the kind of process thing that may make some of your listeners' eyes, you know, roll over, but. The idea there is just let members of Congress do their work, start to build a coalition by allowing people to amend bills and find a substance that can stand up to scrutiny. The only way really to do that, if we don't do a conference, you know, essentially the process is dead. So I'm hopeful that will continue, but I certainly understand Paul's frustration.
Yeah, and in the president's continued demagoguing of the tax issue, yesterday he did not say private jet owners and oil companies, but he just said he calls these things loopholes. And every one of us, Congressman, including the president, who back in 2011 on those taxes, it was reported he gifted his daughters and his wife gifted his daughters the maximum amount allowable by law. That's taking advantage of a loophole. We all take advantage of loopholes, but he said they benefit nobody but the well-off, and they don't do any good for the economy. I think prospective home buyers would beg to differ on that.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And then when you talk about some of this demagoguery, one of the things that frustrates me, we all recognize that our current tax code is far too complicated. We all recognize there are some tax loopholes that have no economic benefit to the economy. And I've spoken to no one who says they want to keep the tax code the same. The real debate here is what are we going to do with those hundreds of billions of dollars that we would save in a simplified, less complicated tax code? Are we going to allow that money to stay in the economy where it can create jobs, or going to grow?
Or spend it? Yep, that's the debate. Congressman, I appreciate it. I'm up against a hard break. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, great to be here. I'd love to come back.
Thank you, Congressman Luke Messer, folks, on the Steve Malzberg Show.